Hi friends, Stephanie here. Today I'm going to show you the sugar cookies I'm making for our primary's Temple and Priesthood Preparation meeting this Sunday. I'm not in charge of it, so I offered to be the one who made the treat since my time's not used up in a more essential way preparing the actual program. Start by making your cookie dough. I used Alton brown sugar cookie dough recipe, which has its own video on Food Network. I'll link it in the description below. I recommend doing the cookies the day before because you're going to have a lot of dirty dishes between making the cookies, the cutters, and all the icing, and giving yourself a breather to get all the dishes clean and start fresh the next day is just going to make the icing portion go so much better. After mixing sugar cookie dough, most recipes tell you to form it into a ball and refrigerate it. Don't. Divide your dough into 2 equal lumps. Sandwich each lump of dough between 2 layers of parchment paper. Roll it to 1/4 of an inch thick, slide the dough and parchment paper onto a cookie sheet, and then refrigerate that until firm, about 45 minutes. The only flour you're going to need is to flour your cutters so that they don't stick to the dough, and I like to use a small spatula to slide under the cutout dough to transfer it to the cookie sheet. Our primary president had recently bought cookie cutters for her personal use, the CTR Shield and the Salt Lake Temple, and that is what he used for baking the cookies. I'll show the cookies to you here in just a moment. I was a little bit worried about the spires of the temples here getting dark brown while the rest of it was still cooking because they're a thinner part of the cookie. So what I did, I'll show you a picture in a moment, is I took a strip of foil and I tinted over all the spires. And then I set the timer for the minimum bake time. And when that timer went off, I took the foil off, rotated the pan, and put it back in for 2 minutes. And that seemed to be about right for getting that just blushing golden color around the edge that you want for sugar cookies. This was the darkest I ended up with any of the spires, which I'm very pleased with. There are 2 main types of decorating icing. There's buttercream, which is usually used for if you're frosting a whole cake, and it's sometimes used for cookies, but the style of icing or the style of cookie we want to do today uses royal icing. Now, back in the old days, they would use egg whites to make royal icing. This is how they stuck together their gingerbread houses and how they did some of their fancy, delicate, decorative work. In modern America, we do not have a tolerance for raw egg whites. So what gets used nowadays is meringue powder. It is pasteurized egg whites, pasteurized powdered egg whites. There's a recipe on this container for making royal icing. These are the decorating bags I'm using today, and I had to run out this morning and get a fresh box because I realized I only had 2 left, and I was hoping to do maybe 4 colors of icing. I have plenty of couplers here that go on the bags and allow you to change up the tips. Tips have numbers 2 and 3, and then I have these ones over here, both 5s, and those are the only tips I'm going to be using today. While the frosting is, or icing, is in the mixer, my recipe says 10 minutes. Get a row of cups or mugs, however many colors of icing you're going to end up with is how many you'll want. And in the bottom of each, put a wet paper towel. The enemy to icing, and also its best friend, is air. Once it's exposed to air, it dries and hardens. And we don't want it exposed to air until after it's on our cookies. So a wet paper towel on the bottom of each of your cups or mugs.
Okay, Mommy.
The couplers have 2 parts. I've dropped the first part into the bag and pushed it down. I'm going to use a pair of scissors to lightly score about where the tip comes down to. Slide it back, cut that off, and that should be just right. Now I add a tip to it and the other coupler piece, and it can wait in the bag for the icing to be ready, or wait in the mug. I'm almost done coloring all the frosting. Over here we have white, green, I tried using these pastels that I got before, but the green was so pale, it wasn't coming out. So I had a gel one that I ended up using. I don't have it on the counter anymore because I used up what was left. The purple and the powder blue, that came from here. And then I used another one of these for the yellow. And I used up what was left, so I can't even tell you which yellow it was. But I was afraid of not adding enough yellow, and what I ended up with was this. So I left a wet cloth on it, which is what I did. I put all of them in a cup. A white or clear cup would have been ideal, but I was using what I had. The colors do affect how you perceive the color when you're tinting it. But I had scooped the icing into each of the cups and then put the wet paper towel over the top of them, and then just took them out one at a time to add the colors, put them in the bag, and then secure the top with an elastic band to help prevent air from getting in and drying out the icing prematurely. Now what I'm going to do here, I have an extra, I had some leftover white that was in the bowl, the mixing bowl that I also covered with a wet paper towel. I'm just going to try to stir in 1 spoonful, and we'll see if that ends up being closer to the yellow we want. Oh, that's a lovely golden, it's definitely a pastel yellow, but I think it's very pretty. I think I'll go with this. So then I fold down the bag so they're like this, and then start spooning it in. I have the cookies lined up on paper towels all along the counter with the icing bags. I've decided I'm going to outline all of the shields in green and all the temples in white, and then I'll get creative with the insides. I have the small tips, the number 2 and the number 3 on the white and green bags. Here they are outlined and ready to go. After outlining, I added just a touch of that light yellow to the tops of the temples. After making stripes of blue and purple, I took a toothpick and in the fresh icing just ran it back and forth in a zigzag, and it created this lovely swirl, which looked different different times I did that, depending on how close together the stripes were and how close together the zigzags were. Here I did 2 dots and then the circle and used the toothpick to create the firework effect. My icing was a little thick here. It should have run flat after I did this. After an hour of icing, this is how much I have done. They're all outlined and slightly over half of them are filled in. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to finish the job myself or if I might let my daughter help out when she gets home, because she was really excited about royal icing. So it's all done now. Looking back, what worked well and what would I redo? Well, the biggest thing is well, 2 big things. One is I wish I had more tips of the sizes I was using because I ended up trying to swap the tips among the different colors. I had more colors than I did tips of any given size, and that was a bit problematic when it came to being creative quickly. Also, I really wish I had teamed up with someone else for the decorating portion. It was fun, and it wasn't hard once you got the feel of it, but it took a lot longer than it looked like it was going to take. And it's a sort of thing that would be great to have a friend over or maybe an older child helping with. They would probably love that. and sharing that work, or alternately having someone else bake the cookies and then dividing the labor that way. Someone made the cookies and then someone else is doing the icing. I would recommend that consideration. Overall though, it was fun, and like I said, look in the description down below for the links for the cookie dough recipe I used and a website that has more professional tips on how to use royal icing. I didn't mention this was my second time only making and using royal icing to decorate cookies. I realize that that's rather an amateur thing to do, but I wanted this video to be for the basic home baker who might be intimidated and think that that's just too professional, I can't do that. So I have video of myself on, this is only my second time doing it, as well as some pictures of cookies my daughter did, and this was her first time doing it. So it's not that hard to make these fun and pretty, and not quite, but almost professional looking. So I hope you give it a try, and thanks for watching. Bye.